Welcome back to the Automation Podcast. My name is Shawn Tierney from Insights in Automation, and I want to thank you for tuning back in this week. In this episode, I meet back up with Michael Warren from Wieland Electric to learn all about their Samos Pro Motion safety controller. But before we get to that, I do want to mention that we are starting to record episodes of the Automation Podcast for 2026. So if you are a vendor or if you have a vendor you think you should come on the show, please let them know. Tell them to contact me directly because we'd love to get them on early in 2026. And with that, I also want to thank Wieland Electric for sponsoring this episode. So not only we could bring it to everybody ad free, but we could also make the video free to all you viewers as well. So with that said, I want to welcome Michael back to the show. Michael, you have a very special spot in our company's history. You were the first in-person guest to talk about the Samos controller, and I just thought that was so fun having you into the studio. But today, we're going to talk about the Samos Pro Motion, and I think this is very interesting because this adds emotion to what we talked about before. And before we go into your slides, though, for those who didn't catch our previous episode, which I think they should because it was so great, but before we jump into this episode, could you just shortly introduce yourself to our audience, and then we'll jump into your presentation?
Yeah, sure, Shawn. Thanks. Thanks again for having me. And my name is Michael Warren. I'm with Wieland Electric, and I'm a business development manager for safety products and services. Today, we're going to talk about the Samos Pro Motion, the variant from the Samos Pro Compact that we have now, that we show that typically the Samos Pro is designed initially to detect human intervention in work cells, and the Samos Pro Motion now is able to detect motor shaft speed conditions, and we'll go into that in the presentation here. And the quick introduction on the Samos Pro Compact Motion variation. It's a new variant from the family itself. And what makes it different, it has 4 fast motion inputs. These will take up to a 70K signal on the base module. And it's applicable with initiators or proxies, ultrasonic, visual, whatnot type, and also HTL encoders. And in the background, in the software that supports this, of course, we have a safe motion library with 6 basic functions. And the chart you see on the left there is basic, some of the basic models. Okay, there's not too many. They come either with screw terminals or push-in, and or with standard Ethernet or Ethernet and industrial protocols. And then at the bottom, we'll have a list of some of the expansion modules and also the safety-rated encoders. Now, when we compare the standard module to the new motion variant, as you'll notice, it carries on with a lot of all the functions that the original Compact had. It covers basic safety functions. It has muting library for when you're using light curtains, extended security when you're doing connections to the outside world. It will display the values in Samos plan, okay, and we'll talk about that, how you can get these values to show on your HMI. We have multiple communication protocols that we can use, whether on board or with additional gateways. And we also have libraries for various industries. We have one for the press industry. We have one that collects analog values, one for the combustion industry, and of course, with the motion variant, we have a library for motion. And we want to emphasize that the Samos Pro Motion is an all-in-one compact controller, meaning that there's no additional modules needed to have this motion capability. It's compact, modular, and also expandable, and we'll go into that a little bit more. Some of the capabilities it has, of course, is to monitor standstill, speed, direction, and position. And the 6 motion functions that are integrated are standstill monitoring, safe direction, safe speed range, safe limited speed, safe minimum speed, and of course, safe limited position. These are the functional blocks that are mostly used in the industry at this point. Now, it is a modular and scalable system. We start out with the base unit. The base unit itself, of course, has 20 inputs, meaning that it can take up to 10 safety devices and 8 outputs. We have LEDs for statuses of diagnostics and also for error messages. The standard ports on board are the Ethernet port. We have an SD card slot and a mini USB for programming. And as I mentioned, we had 4 fast motion inputs, I13 through I16. And again, we have either variation of screw-in type or push-in terminal blocks. Now, as I mentioned, this is scalable and expandable. We can add additional communication protocols. We can also add a gateway for CAN open or Profibus or EtherCAT. Okay, we can actually add 2 more gateways to this expansion if we need. On top of that, we can add additional safe I/O when 20 input is not enough. We can add additional safety I/O. We can also add additional non-safety I/O. On top of that, we have some more variants for analog measurements. We can take either current or voltage and RTD inputs as part of our input catalog to monitor our conditions in our cell. And on top of that, we also have the base configuration is just one base, which occupies all in the left 45 millimeters. So again, quite capable by itself. It has up to 2 additional communication gateways and 12 expansion modules of any combination. So it is, again, quite scalable depending on your needs. As an integrated safe motion controller, it is a single device. And the benefit of this is, of course, that you occupy less space in the cabinet. There are some products that actually require additional module, or the module that is used for motion is a bit larger. But this, again, does not deviate from its 45 millimeter width and how much space it occupies on a DIN rail. And depending on how you want to configure the software, this can be tailor-made for pretty much any application regarding safety, both for human safety, but also for monitoring motor shaft condition, either speed, position, or direction. The function blocks that we talked about, SLS, SMS, SSR, standstill, SDI, and SLP, these are all TUV certified function blocks, basically an industry standard for being compatible across the industry for any of these types of conditions. And the benefit of the software itself is just intuitive programming. These are literally drag and drop into your workspace from the library itself. So it cuts down on the amount of time, first time that you have to build a program. And the programming itself is easy. As you expand the modules, the software accommodates any type of application that you may need. And it's quite intuitive and very understandable, especially when it comes time to trying to do some maintenance or investigate the safety system. In addition to being able to take safe motion inputs, there's an anti-vibration toolbox. This is a really good benefit to help cut down on arbitrary signals or signals that may interfere with the actual encoder signals going in. And this is prevalent and occurs a lot when you're monitoring shafts because of vibration, just inherent vibrations of the motion of the shafts itself. So you can maintain your robustness, reliability, and safety despite the vibrations. And again, as you'll see, there's a variety of configurations that may be set up depending on your needs. One of the interesting things that you can do too is to monitor shaft breakage, meaning that you have now the tools available to you to maintain in confidence that the shaft that you're actually using or monitoring is not broken. And again, it's not that difficult. You put 2 motion sensors, typically an encoder on one end, an encoder on another end, and you do a comparison between the two. And as soon as you detect a difference in speed between the 2 sensors, now you recognize that the shaft is not contiguous and that it's broken, and you can initiate a safe action following that. So it does provide higher safety with that redundancy with 2 encoders on it. And you might find these, again, in presses and in portal axles, again, when you're trying to monitor and maintain the integrity of the shaft under scrutiny. The Ethernet gateways on board include Profinet, Ethernet, IP, and also Modbus. As I showed you in the expansion slide, we also had additional for Profibus, EtherCAT, and CAN Open. So again, you have pretty much coverage for all the major communication buses that are out there and available. Yeah. And in fact, that these three right here, Profinet, Ethernet IP, and Modbus are resident on this, you're saving space. Again, no additional modules needed to cover those three particular protocols.
Well, I want to be clear on this. If I get the industrial protocol option, right, the unit that has the industrial protocols, I get all three of these?
Correct. They're
That's
included. Awesome. Yep, it's included as part of the unit itself, and you can see the Ethernet port on the front face of it. And that's a nice feature benefit to have on the base unit. And again, you have these protocols, and you're only occupying 45 millimeters of space on the DIN rail.
Yeah, and it's great because if you're an OEM, you've got a lot of different systems that you have to work with, you may need different protocols. So having one model number that has all three protocols is just huge.
Yep, it is a really, really good benefit. I'm glad you mentioned that, Shawn. Okay, now the output of this, okay, what can we do? What can we monitor? Okay, we have the ability to send the signal from the compact controller, the motion controller, to an HMI, and we can monitor things. We can monitor like e-stops, okay, safety devices, their condition, whether they're active or tripped. When we're measuring, okay, we're either measuring counts, for example, in this example, or we're measuring shaft speed and direction and whatnot. We can send all these signals. So we provide status bits, counter values, speed, position, and direction. And again, if we're monitoring analog information, things like temperature and pressure can be displayed on your HMI. So it involves, it's pretty easy mapping any of the gateways. And again, the style of the programming is not so much programming anymore. It's just configuring with drag and drop. It's continuous data. So again, as it's an active view, so you can monitor your HMI and see the performance and the condition of the setup. It sets up quick and easy. You don't need any sort of a signal splitter or whatnot. And of course, that just saves you extra time, cost, and effort if you don't need or to have any additional sensors to accomplish that. Some examples, some application examples, okay? These are pretty popular in the machine tool metalworking business. And again, cutters, okay? Whether it's laser cutting, plasma cutting, water cutting, whatnot. There's several features that you want to be able to monitor to help coordinate what's going on, okay? Standstill monitoring, okay? When to know when things are stationary, okay? And safe limited speed and safe direction. There may be an application where one direction is in a safe condition and the opposite direction is a hazardous condition. This is easily accomplished with encoders and the Samos Mo Pro motion controller. Now, there's easy calibration mode with safe limited speed. It has the highest safety during tool change, meaning that when you're doing a standstill monitoring, you know that the machine is not moving. It's robust against vibrations. Again, we spoke about that with the anti-vibration toolbox in the software. And again, it is one consolidated system for all safety functions. Additional type of machine that could be a benefit from motion control is woodworking machines, things like CNCs and saws and things like that. And again, we're going to reach out into the toolbox to use various functions, things like safe standstill during tool changeover. Safe standstill again for service and maintenance. Okay, maintaining the position and the direction and the speed of devices that could be causing hazards for people, and of course, safe limited speed for calibration and setup. Quite often, these need to be run while someone is nearby, but again, there can be a threshold of speed dialed in to make sure that the operators are still safe. This is both cost-effective and a compact solution. Again, all this functionality still resides in the module itself. You can have up to a PLD safety level, okay, based using either prox switches or encoders. And it, again, as I mentioned, it supports other functions, meaning that it can also take inputs from either safety mats, light curtains, e-stops, and whatnot as part of the total safety function. Additionally, packaging machines, okay, whether they're folders, sealers, or wrappers, okay, there are various hazards to these machines, and they do benefit from motion monitoring. Again, safe standstill for maintenance, safe limited speed during setup, and safe direction. If there's a conveyor on there, okay, there may be one direction where it is hazardous to individuals, and in another direction that is not necessarily hazardous. So it can be dialed in during the recipe creation. It just gives you that additional flexibility depending on the option and the use of the machine itself. And you can also add this kind of safety when you're doing monitoring of motor shafts, but just adding a safety encoder to pre-existing and legacy equipment. Storage systems, and this is especially true when you have vertical lifts. Okay, that things like high bay storage, channel storage, storage retrieval machines, things like that. It's very, very important to understand standstill, meaning that when these assemblies are at a hold position, and especially if people are going to be nearby or underneath anything like this, it's incredibly important to understand when you are actually at a standstill condition. Safe limited speed, again, also for human interaction. Safe limited position is safe working range, okay? It's to know when and where individuals can be near or potentially underneath these moving rack systems. And of course, there's configurable speeds, configurable positions, depending on the sensors needed and the actual application. So this becomes a cost-effective solution. As I mentioned, the function blocks themselves are TUB certified. And in this situation, you would be up to a PLD in a safety condition using 2 safety encoders. So most importantly, again, it is an ideal situation, an ideal monitoring for standstill, especially where as a vertical lift and there could be gravitational forces at play here. Speaking of lift, cranes and hoisting, okay? Same situation, okay? This is suitable for cranes, platforms, and or service lifts, things like scissor lifts, things like that, okay? Very important to be able to understand when you're actually at standstill, okay? Encoders can detect that, feed that to the Samos Pro, and adjust the application based on whether or not it is at standstill or not. Additional applications, additional function blocks could also include safe limited speed and safe limited position, depending on whether it's a speed or a work range need. Additionally, as we showed in the expansion slide, that we can also take analog load measurements, okay, and absolute distance information as part of the crane movement and crane and rotation and whatnot to understand and have a safety blanket, basically, in any of the crane movements. So it's a one-stop shop where you have protection for both motion and also analog functions. AGVs, another ideal situation where, again, you have to provide a safety blanket on these devices. Again, they have to be able to identify people and make adjustments in their motion. They have to identify fixed objects and adjust their motion. So a safe motion controller can use several of these function blocks to actually accomplish that. Okay, safe direction, for example, you may use those. These typically have some sort of a scanner. These are like either the forward-looking eyes or the rear-looking eyes, and they have to be initiated depending on which direction they're going in. A safe direction indicator can identify that and to elicit the front or the rear scanner on, depending on its direction. Okay. Additional things like safe speed range, slowing when it gets into a shared alleyway or coming to an intersection, things like that. Safe speed range, again, stopping near zones, depending on loading, unloading, and whatnot. And of course, safe limited position, depending on the steering axles. So it is the most compact. Again, it's ideal, especially for AGVs where space is at a premium. You don't have the luxury of a large cabinet to install all these things. They do have to be put into a compact chassis. Um, the TUV level certification in an application like this, again, would be PLD with 2 safety encoders. And again, you have industrial Ethernet integrated in the base module for sending out information. Additional benefit for AGVs, since there could be many, many vehicles with the same recipe in them, is how you share the recipe, the programming. The initial program can be done on a laptop, stored on an SD card, and then an individual can go out to the floor and populate that recipe to each AGV by taking the SD card, inserting it into the Samos ProMotion SD card slot, uploading the program, and then moving on to the next and next and next. It really cuts down on time, and also cuts down the need to carry around additional tools or a laptop to be able to do that.
That's a great feature. But, one thing I picked up is that you seem to use program and recipe interchangeably. Am I correct on that?
I do. And the program, it's programming, but the program itself is basically the functions that the safety system needs to perform. And I would interchange that with either a program or a recipe, either one.
Okay. No, and the only reason I think about it is because a lot of times as a PLC person, I think of recipe as, eggs and butter and, whatever it takes, right? And so a lot of different PLCs have a recipe feature that makes that easy. So I just wanted to get clear in my own mind, and I apologize if the audience, if I'm going off on a sidebar here, but I just wanted to make sure because I heard you say that a couple of times. So when you say recipe or program, you're pretty much talking about what you've created, that code you've created in the developer, which is all visual and very, very cool, which we saw in the last episode. And when you download that to the unit, you may call it a recipe or a program, but that's what's on that SD card. And you don't have to leave the SD card in. Is that correct?
The way that the Samos Pro operates, it likes to have a card in it. It doesn't have to have that particular program resident on the card, but the slot is dependent on having a card in there. So again, you can walk around, transfer the program to each of the AGVs, and basically just put in a placeholder. There's actually a placeholder that you can use in its place. And that's basically how the controller likes to operate.
Does it come with that placeholder?
Yes, it actually does come with it.
Good.
Yep. So we spoke about the encoders, some of the input devices that actually feed this, okay? And these represent a couple of different variations of safety encoders, SENC, safety encoders. These are HTLs, okay? And they can be either 2 or 4 tracks. And of course, we're watching speed, position, and direction on these. And all the functions with or without direction are available. And also, it includes the anti-vibration toolbox. It could be very important on machinery that generates a lot of vibration. It is available, the safety level, up to Cat 4, PLE, and SIL 3, depending on the configuration, whether you're using just AB, or A inverse, B, and B inverse. And of course, the maximum number of axes that we can monitor is 2, okay, upwards of 2. Now, proxies, you don't have to just use a safety-rated encoder, Wielands or otherwise, to operate this. You can use prox sensors. Okay, they can be standard proxies. They can be ultrasound, even a light barrier, for example. Okay, it's looking for some sort of a timed signal as an input, and of course, the max reachable safety levels is really dependent on whether or not in the top 2 graphics it shows single proxies. The bottom 2 show redundant dual proxies. So in the safety world, if you want a higher level of safety, of course, you have to make things redundant. And that's why the first 2 is the highest you can have is Cat 1, PLC, SIL 1. That's only with 1 sensor. And at the bottom, the highest you can get is Cat 3, PLE, or SIL 2, and that's using 2 sensors. And of course, again, we're still just monitoring the maximum of 2 axes. Okay. And then, of course, so we covered safety encoders, we covered standard prox type devices, and now we can also use a standard encoder. And I think it pretty much is the same concept as a safety encoder, but I think you'll notice that the max reachable safety level is only Cat 1, PLC, and SIL 1. This is a bit of a derating because, again, it isn't a safety rated encoder. Okay, there is a benefit by having a safety rated encoder as part of your system if your safety needs in your PL level, your required PL level, is a bit higher. It can be achieved, but you would have to get the safety rated encoders. But the standard encoders do and can work very well with this. And if we have two axes, then it's just single-ended, okay, signal-wise, or one axis and antivalent. So again, it depends on the configuration and the kind of signals that you're feeding the Samos Pro Compact Motion. So, in summary, the applications with the Pro Motion. Okay, these are a couple of the devices that we show, a couple of the encoders. Okay, one is a hollow shaft, the other one is a solid shaft to attach to a pre-existing shaft of some sort with a coupler. Okay, we're monitoring speed, direction, and positioning. And again, this is always concurrent with safety standards. In this case, IEC 61800. Standstill monitoring is useful and beneficial during commissioning or maintenance. Again, maintaining the fact that you have zero RPM, zero shaft movement. Safe direction is useful and important, especially when you have rollers or gates or machinery where you have to know, again, one direction is safe versus the other direction not being so safe. Safe limited speed. If you have to monitor and the safety integrity of an application during setup where there is actually motion and there's human interaction involved, then a safe limited speed is established to say that, okay, once it arrives at that safe limited speed, then someone can interact with the machinery. And of course, safe limited position for any sort of rotary or linear axes, and to understand where the position is, for example, like cranes. Okay, there could be one position that is considered a safe position for the crane, and another position where it's directly over a walkway or whatnot that would be considered unsafe, and it couldn't stop or maintain in that position there. And that concludes the presentation that we have for you on the Samos Pro Motion. Again, it's one device only, no additional modules needed to have this feature and capability resident on the unit itself. Oh, any questions?
No, I just had a little reflection. I mean, I'm just thinking about how, we get this device, you can get it with the industrial protocols. You can add two more industrial protocols to it, the CAN bus or EtherCAT or, the others. Then you can add 12 additional modules, safe or non-safe. So it's just, to me, I'm like, it's this flexible safety controller that does motion, right? Safe speed and all the six that you mentioned, in addition to having all that expandability. It just brings me back to when you were here in the office and we filmed that episode on the Samos Pro Compact, I believe it was.
Yes,
And
exactly.
and I probably should throw out there too that these guys don't just make this safety controller; they make HMIs and all kinds of other stuff as well, as we talked about in that video. But Michael, was there anything else you wanted to cover? I do want you to spell out your for anybody who's driving, spell out your website for them so they know how to get to your website. But is there also anything else you wanted to cover in today's show?
Well, let me get to the website.
Okay.
It's www.wieland-electric.com.
Okay.
That's our North American website. We're a German company, but that's our North American website.
Nice. Okay.
And to follow up on what you mentioned, when we had our studio session, the demo that I ran through was a perfect example of how a motion controller like this integrates nicely into a safety cell. Look, we fed various safety input devices into that demo. Okay, we had an e-stop on there. We had 3 types of door interlocks. We had light curtains. We had a proximity sensor, actually, if you recall, where you could come closer and closer, and then have a position where you say, okay, any closer than that is considered unsafe, and that would trip the safety itself. So what we've added now to that portfolio is motor shaft performance, meaning speed, direction, and position. And that demo actually had it. It doesn't really show itself very well, but hidden inside is a motor, and there's a belt, and the belt is attached to a shaft encoder. And that encoder now is picking up what's going on with that motor. It identifies its speed, it identifies its position, and it also identifies its direction. And depending on a real life application, all of those devices could be spread out throughout the machine, and you're trying to capture an image of the safe condition of the machine, whether someone is stepping on a safety mat, or someone is putting a hand in somewhere, or if the machine reaches an unsafe speed or an unsafe position. You're monitoring all that with that safety controller. And to your point about the expandability, your first iteration may include 4 or 5 modules, but as you saw in the presentation, you have that scalability. As your needs grow, so can this base module system grow with you. So you can continue to add more and more as your needs and as your safety needs continue to grow.
Yeah, I can definitely see like an OEM, they'll have different machines. Some are more complicated than others. So on some machines, they'll need more safety IO than others. So that's a very good point. And just want to thank you again, Michael, for coming back on the show and bringing us up to speed. I just found that presentation so interesting as you went through all the different motion safety applications where you need to monitor, safe speeds and whatnot. So safe directions, so important on these type of systems that you went through. But in any case, really just want to thank you again for coming on.
Oh, I appreciate it, Shawn. Thank you for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I want to thank Michael for coming back on the show to bring us up to speed on the Samos Pro Motion Safety Controller. I learned a lot. I really enjoyed seeing all those different applications that the product can be used in. Very interesting stuff, and how you make those applications safe by monitoring different things. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as well. I also want to thank Wieland Electric for sponsoring this episode so we can make it ad-free. They basically underwrote our costs to film, edit, and publish the episode. And by doing so, we don't have to put any ads in it. So we really appreciate that. Again, if you have a favorite vendor, or if you're a vendor yourself, we are starting to record episodes for 2026 now. And so we'd love to get you to contact us if you have some time. Maybe all the shows are done. You have some time during the holidays where you want to sit back and do something more relaxing, maybe stay in the office and do some shows with us. Please get in touch, because that's what keeps this podcast going. It's not me, it's you, the vendors, and you, the audience, who asked your vendors to contact me to come on the show, because without the vendors, what do we talk about, right? That's what the show's all about. Learning about new products and technologies, and who better to tell us about them than the actual people either creating the products or using the products, or, the product specialists. So with that said, everybody, I want to wish you all good health and happiness. And until next time, my friends, peace.